hearing from the candidate. Much more important to us that the candidates hear from you. So with that, I give the stage to David Horovitz, the founding editor of the Times of Israel, who will be moderating this evening, and we're looking forward. Thank you again.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Like Jay said, it's been a series of events that we've done, and our thanks to the Tel Aviv International Salon for partnering and doing so much of the organizational work. And I just have to add thanks to everyone from the Times of Israel who's helped put all these events together, and especially the indefatigable and irreplaceable and wonderful Linda Amar. Those of you who know. Okay, and now, without further ado, I hope, yes, it is my pleasure and my privilege to introduce the chair of Blue and White, the former Chief of Staff of the IDF, Lieutenant General Reserves Benny Gantz. Okay, thank you everybody. Welcome General Gantz. A week before the elections, that you're giving an evening to, 1,000 plus English-speaking Olim, Vatikim voters. Greatly appreciated. And I know you wanted to start by setting out a little of your political vision before we get into the nitty-gritty of the questions and answers. So please.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming. The Jewish state is an outcome of the Zionist idea. And the Zionist idea as such had several pillars that we must remember. Shalom, Norman. And the Zionist idea had several pillars that contained a Jewish state for the Jewish people, well defended, with recognized borders by the region and by the international community, strong economy, and high ethics of the society, as if we are Or Lagoim, and good relations between the State of Israel as a Jewish state and the Jewish communities around the diaspora all over the world. The entire pillars are at stake right now. Yes, we are the state of the Jewish nation, and no one should argue this. That's a given. We are the strongest country within the region, and we will keep it this way. But at the very same time, we must take advantage of our strength and try and move forward with the right political processes which take in consideration our Zionist interest and our security needs. We must take advantage of our economy and make sure it comes from everybody and it goes for everybody. And we must make sure that our social activities and social relations within our country, within our state, are much better than they are right now. And we must call for unity and not try and get any kind of uniformity. We Jews had always had 3 synagogues. One we went to, one we didn't go to, and one that we will never go to. But we still were able to stay together, to stay united, and not divided. Every time we have an emergency, we show unity. Why can't we enjoy it just a bit? Just a bit. Isn't that the role of leadership? Isn't that something that the leaders of the country need to wake up in the morning and ask themselves, what do we do for the country and not what the country is doing for us? And as much as I hate to say it, unfortunately, that is not the case currently in Israel. I think Benjamin Netanyahu has done a lot for the country. He is the son of this country. He served this country as a soldier, as an officer. His brother was killed. He served in public life for more than 2 decades and 13 years as a prime minister. But as we say, enough is enough. I'll take 2 more minutes. And the reason I decided to step out of my comfort zone were very clear to me. They have 4 names: Nadav, Noga, Nir, and Noam. Those are my kids. But all of you have your kids, and I don't know their names, but I assume some have Nadav, Noga, Nir, and Noam. And if you don't mind, I'm going to be 60 this year, so what do I have left? 20, 30 years? But whoever is younger than me, and many of you are younger than me, have so many more years that we want to work for to make sure that you will have a great country to live in. This is what we are looking to do. This is exactly what we are looking to do. So our national priorities are very clear, alongside with security that we understand that we must keep. Because as we all know, Israel is not the Switzerland. And we live in a very hectic area. I don't want to repeat it. We must promote education first and foremost. First and foremost has to go to education. If we don't expedite our education system, we will not be leading the world as we should. We must promote our national infrastructure And I talked about the vision of the century. Israel is going to be 100 years old in 2048. It's coming quick. 30 years, it's nothing in terms of history. If we will not identify what needs to be done and start doing it in the next decade, it won't be there when we will need it. And we're going to be 16, 17 million people, and if 50% of them won't be living at the periphery, as we say, 25% up north, 25% down south, and only all the rest in the center, we will not be able to live right in Israel. So we must expedite it. We must maintain our democracy. We must maintain our democracy. We have a great legal system, and we must support it. We must increase the internal security of this country. People need to be able to walk in the street with no danger. People need to be able to open a business with no danger. And we have to vote and make sure that everybody is fair about legal aspects. And we must be a fair society that takes care not only on our excellent guys, high-tech, IDF, whatever it is, but also take care of those who have more difficulties, whether those are actual difficulties, whether those are economical difficulties. We don't ignore our own people. None of it is happening right now. So here we are. We will not exist 3 months ago, and in 3 months we made it to be the leading party, and I'm telling you, a week from now we're going to win the election and change the course of history for Israel. Thank you for coming today.
So, thank you, General Gantz. Again, thank you for being here. And I have to ask you, you came from nowhere. You came from a military career. You were at the top of the military hierarchy, which means as chief of staff, you told people to do things, and they did things. And then you entered politics, where not everybody does exactly what you want them to do. How much of a shock, how different has it been with this nascent political career compared to those decades in the army?
I was trained for this, and I'll tell you, and it's not always that people did what I told them. Actually, that was the other way around. My mother would call me and say, "General," and I would say yes, and she said, "Take out the garbage." So I was, I was always told to do things, right? It's different, but it's not that different as we see it. Because I can see, at least in blue and white, that like in the military life, we have identified a common goal for us all, and that was the only way we were able to establish blue and white, because each and everyone had its own agenda, but then we changed it. Each and everyone pulled back a little bit on his ego, and we decided to work together. So basically, even in civilian life, we are able in seeing a common goal. And I'm telling you, it's not like wartime, that something needs to happen tomorrow, but other than the time frame, I think Israel, in so many aspects, is in a real emergency. I would say emergency era. I wouldn't say emergency, literally speaking, as if something is wrong tomorrow. But we are in an emergency era, if you ask me, and we all identify that. So this is as far as blue and white. I'm sure we'll be able to lead and to win the elections with the help of everybody in this great space and in other places. We need everyone to show up and take part in this. But then we can also create coalition. In a way, blue and white is a pre-coalition. Contains of 3 different parties. They join together, and I believe that we can have 3 more later on, so we can form the government. So to answer you, it's different, but it's possible, and it's the non-political guy who took people who are more senior than him, have more experience in political life than him, and created from nothing this blue and white event, and I think we can continue.
You're battling a psychological issue here. I used to have on my CV, I used to say, I've interviewed all of Israel's recent prime ministers, which was quite an interesting thing to say 8-9 years ago when there had been several recent prime ministers. The last decade, I think it was yesterday that in this consecutive term, the prime minister marked 10 years. And there's no term limits here, and therefore it's a challenge when you're up against someone for whom the words prime minister and Benjamin Netanyahu have almost become synonymous. They sort of go together for so many people. How hard is that challenge?
Well, it is challenging, but I took the challenge for two reasons. The most important one, and makes it a bit easier for me, that my name is also Benjamin, so it starts a bit easier, right? And I do have a starting point here. But now, seriously speaking, Benjamin Netanyahu sat in front of Israel TV and clearly said, mark my word, he said, 2 tenure, 8 years, you're done. Whatever you did in the first tenure, good. If you didn't succeed, do it in the next one. Once you finish that, you're over with. You have to live the political life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How far do we want to go? Add those to 13, and you'll have the explanation why everything is so corrupt, why everything is so tied to his own interest. Now, I know Netanyahu, he's a good person. I worked for him. I don't hate him. I just think that there should be a limit to everything. So I saw the situation, and I realized that someone needs to replace him. So I looked around. I couldn't find the guy that can do it. So like Nachshon in the Bible, they jump into the sea. And like in other cases I had in my military services, when the flag was down on the ground, and that was the case after Brigadier General Erez was killed in Lebanon, I was called, I didn't ask any questions. That was the case when I was asked to go to become Judea and Samaria. That was the question, that was the answer I had to give with no hesitation. Actually, I retired from the IDF once, rode with my friend Norman on my motorcycle, and became the chief of staff the next morning because I was asked to. So I feel when your country calls for you, you do not hesitate. And if it's challenging, we will find a solution for the challenge.
Why do you say this is an emergency era? We're here, we're gathered with, some security, but we're here in a lovely hotel on a lovely day. People move around freely. Tourists flow into this country. The Eurovision is imminent. Iran is, of course, a threat, but they're being. The deal has at least kicked the nuclear program can down the road a little bit. Gaza, we were worried about the other day, but we seem to be able to keep a lid on protests out of Gaza. I'm not being complacent about this. Rockets on Tel Aviv just a few days ago and cross-border fire and so on. But why do you say this is an emergency era?
I'll tell you why. If you look at our security challenges and you go from Lebanon to Syria to Iran to the Eastern Front, Judea, Samaria, Sinai, Gaza, whatever, we do have security challenges, whether it's from the knife level all the way up to the threat of nuclear capabilities. Blue and white present a team that were the actual guys who brought us to the security level that you were just talking about. We did it for Netanyahu under his direction. That's okay, that's fair enough. There's no country in the region that we didn't visit, mostly without a passport. No one can tell us really about security. No one can teach us this story. And I had this meeting in London a few years back, maybe 2 years back, 3 years back maybe. And I gave them the whole speech about our security challenges and the security threat. And I talked about Iran and 150,000 rockets of Hezbollah and Hamas and missile room and living room and sellers for missiles, whatever you want. I mean, I gave them the entire speech, and after they had no more, they couldn't breathe anymore from so many threats I put on them, they asked me, Benny, but what worries you most? And with no hesitation, I told them, Israel. We became the challenge of ourselves. We became the challenge of ourselves. And we should not agree to be put under fear of something that we can deal with, Hezbollah and all the others. I'm not saying it's not going to be serious, but we know how to deal with it. But see what happens inside Israel. Minister of Culture supposed to develop our cultural institution. She attacks them. Minister of Justice supposed to support our justice system. She attacks them. Minister of Internal Security supposed to develop those organizations. He attacks them. We have no chief of police for 5 months now because of political processes. The security cabinets attacks the IDF and others. The prime minister attacks everyone. Makes no sense. Something is wrong. And I'm telling you, we need to fix the house. And it's an internal emergency era. We have good society. We have good society. We do have very good society. Very good society. I'm very proud of it. I'm walking around the streets. We have good society. We need to be united. We cannot be diverse that much. And we have to speak with each other. I was part of PNIMA. PNIMA is a political movement, but it's a non-political movement. And we had in the same room all the section of the government, of the society, sorry. Just like we have in our party. We have 8 Orthodox, one of whom is the first ultra-Orthodox lady to be served as a parliament member. We have the first woman, first Druze woman to be served as a parliament member. So we are telling you, we can sit in the same party with so many segments of the Israeli society and have a dialogue. So I'm telling you, I feel we are in emergency, because if it doesn't stop, it will threaten our ability not just to live our life, but also to stand against external threats, which currently they are absolutely handleable.
You're slightly ahead in most of the polls, but the argument that you and your party make is that if you beat the Likud, you'll form the government. Whereas when we look at the blocs, we don't see that. So the way I would like to ask you the question really is, are there parties that are assumed to be in the Likud bloc who you don't actually think are necessarily in the Likud bloc?
Yes, I think it's not necessarily the bloc as we saw them. Our political position, let's put it this way, is fairly center. We have left aspects in our party, we have right aspects in our party, and we have dialogues which obviously I will not cover right now with different segments within other parties. And I think there is a big difference between the day, the campaign until the election, and the hours after the election themselves and from there on. So if we will be the biggest party, we will have the sufficient base to start the dialogue from there, and I think we can do it.
Ultra-Orthodox parties, possibly?
All of them are possible.
Arab parties?
I basically exclude no one, but they have to support the Zionist idea, and they have to be democratic, and unfortunately, and they cannot be racist. So unfortunately, while I have nothing against the Arab citizens of this country, and I think they are equal citizens, and they have so many challenges that we need to deal with: education, infrastructure, violence in their system. They are equal citizens. Unfortunately, their political leaders are talking against the government. So while I can communicate and support and serve the Arab citizens of the country, I cannot cooperate politically with their leaders. So this is on one side. And on the other side, I cannot accept extremists like the followers of Kahana. So those are unacceptable as well. And all the rest is question of dialogue.
If you beat the Likud, do you think within the Likud there will be an effort to change their leader, who will be presumably reluctant to be changed?
Following the lesson I've learned from Netanyahu, I don't tell the right wing how to manage their leadership.
On the Palestinian front, you've taken positions that I understand essentially to rule out a Palestinian state, because you've said you would want Israel to retain overall security control in the West Bank and not divide Jerusalem, maintain the Jordan Valley as the eastern security border. So that means no to a Palestinian state?
I think we need to come to the discussion between us and the Palestinians from a different perspective. We cannot expect to repeat the same process and to expect a different solution.